We got a boo. Hey. This is his first time on my channel, but he is a brother in the Lord. Praise God, Brother Abu. If you want to put your camera up, because your camera is off, so you want to so you want to cut your camera off. Your camera. Okay, there you go.
There we go.
How you doing, bro? God bless you.
Very good, very good. Hold on, let me text Vocab. Vocab was just trying to call me. Let me text him. Hold on 1 second.
Tell him don't be bothering us, sir. I got you for the night. He had you on your platform 1,500 times. It's my turn. And send him my love, please.
Mm-hmm.
So Brother Boo, first of all, let me say God bless you and thank you so much for being willing to come and speak with us. And let me say God bless you and your lovely wife and your family. Peace and blessings to you all. I am so privileged to have you up here. I've been thinking about it ever since I said I sent Brother Alfredo to you. I'm the one who did that. I was like, Alfredo, ask him. He's like, sure, you ask him. That's your brother. I'm like, no, you talk to him. So he did. And I want to thank Brother BK Apologist so much for reaching out to you for me. Praise God. And thank you so much for accepting the invitation to come here. And not to mention, this is your platform too. So, so I'm excited.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We're already live. I take it we're already on YouTube, huh?
Yeah. They can hear you. They can hear you.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are pretty much live. Some of them, they straggle in kind of late or whatever. They'll get here. So everybody's pretty much adjusting in themselves. But a lot of them, sometimes some of them come in late, some of them come in on time, but they'll get here. They'll get here definitely. I just want to say God bless you again. And
Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. And I can't wait. And I'm gonna tell you something. I love your videos, bro. I love the way you do it. Like the language. I mean, you very detailed, is step by step, and it's easy. You don't make it complicated, even though it is tedious work, but I think you break it down to the lowest common denominator that you can, and I think a lot of people respect that. I definitely do, because your channel has helped me out a lot with the linguistic stuff. So thank you for what you do.
My pleasure. I really appreciate all the compliments. I'm not sure where you want to start. Do you want to start just discussing the history of my interactions with the proponents of the Hebrew on the pews position, or you want me to jump straight to discussing the latest developments? Or
let's lay the foundation for everybody so they, because a lot of people been keeping up with the story, but I want to reiterate it because I don't want to assume everybody know. So I would like to start with the the beginning, and then we can bridge on out. Before you do, I'm gonna let Brother Brian greet everybody. Brother Brian, quickly go ahead and say hey to all the men and women of God. Praise God. God bless everybody in the chat. Sorry, y'all. Go ahead, Brother Brian.
God bless everybody. Glad everybody's here tonight, and thank you, Abu, for coming on. I really appreciate it. The only time I've ever interacted with you is through Messenger on Facebook, but I appreciate you coming on.
Okay, so now that we got that out the way, okay, Brother Boo, we can just jump right on in because I know this is a long story. I know it's a lot involved. So you got the floor. Come on, dear brother. I got questions.
Sure. I'll try to sum it up, and then of course I'll answer any questions I can. The short end of the story is there is a church in Savannah, Georgia called First African Baptist Church, and there for a while now there have been a number of people who believed that there was cursive Hebrew on the pews there, and some people feel that if that's true, that will somehow indicate something about the lineages of the people who built the church. Apparently, the church, or the pews specifically, was built by slaves here in the United States in Georgia. And so some people, my focus on Israelite stuff, especially in the language area, is I'm mostly interested in Lashon Kodash, but some people asked me around, I think it was mid to late 2019, I was asked to take a look at the subject. And so I looked at it. I made a very respectful video, which was based on the video that someone had sent me. It was a video of Kelly Richardson discussing it. And so I actually made two videos, one just trying to discuss the methodology of it, because I had looked at pictures of the pews. And in my opinion, I felt I hadn't seen any coherent language in those pews. So about a year ago, I made two videos. The first one just offering some methodological points and saying that if we're going to attempt to argue that there's discernible language in the pews, whatever the language is, people should get into the markings themselves. They should look into the markings and try to transcribe what they believe they see. So then I had a second video which attempted to illustrate what this would look like by making a hypothetical case for Arabic. As that went down, somehow there was a misunderstanding. Now, keep in mind, other people share my videos and maybe things can be conveyed slightly differently, but there was some sort of a misunderstanding, and Pastor Kelly Richardson, who was the focus of my first two videos, he concluded that I was disrespecting him personally. And so then, things started to snowball from there. And there were even threats of litigation, that he could sue us for defamation. Nothing came of that. I don't think I defamed him in any way. And then, over the last year, there's been sort of this weird, it's been an unfortunate controversy where I've repeatedly said that, let's just look at the markings on the pews. Let's, if someone's going to claim there's language there, let's just look at the markings. And Pastor Kelly Richardson became more and more offended. I don't know exactly how, but somehow he concluded that I was disrespecting him, that other people were disrespecting him. He was offended because he believed that someone had said that he doesn't know Hebrew. I'm not even sure where exactly he gets that from. But whatever the case, he was sort of perpetually, let me rephrase that. I take that back because that sounds wrong. He was offended throughout much of the last year, and but there was never an attempt to look past that and just get into the pews. What's happened recently is a gentleman who goes by the name Benaiah Israel. I've heard his friends call him Benaiah, but a gentleman, I thought it was Benaiah Israel, made the first attempt that I know of to actually look into the pews and try to make a case for a specific language, for
and
Hebrew.
This is the pews in question, correct? The
right.
Image I have up here. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't see what you have up. Let me see if I can pull up the live feed. Let me go to your sorry, Cherry Love. I got to go to your page real quick so I can pull it up on my laptop because I'm doing this from my phone.
Okay, and just put it, and when you do it, just put it on mute, and then you can see everything that I see.
Yes. Okay, so that is one of the pews, but that's not the particular pew that the gentleman named Benaiah looked at. It was a different pew. I could send you the picture if you want. But yeah, he looked at a different pew and he made an attempt to argue that it was Hebrew in the Solitreo script. And he's gone through at least two permutations. He's offered two different interpretations of what the markings might declare. And then today there was a video on the account of the, what's it called? The Boom Church Atlanta. Although I don't think the video's up anymore. It might be available, but it's not, I don't see it on their page at present.
Oh, they took it down?
Well, not in the sense that I think it's unlisted, but not down. Let me see. Wow. Like if you go to Boom Church Atlanta on their video section, you don't see it anymore. At least I don't. I don't know. Okay. But whatever the case, they had a live discussion now today between, I believe it was Dante Fortson, a gentleman named Yacoba, who I think is from the End of the World Ministries, Benaiah Israel, Pastor Kelly Richardson, Sister E, and I guess the host was this gentleman from Boom Church Atlanta. I'm not familiar with him, so I hope he'll forgive me for forgetting his name. And they had a long discussion, about 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's unlisted.
Yeah, and then that's interesting. But they had I can send you an image. Let's see, or maybe I can share it.
I can actually go to your channel with no problem.
Well, let me see if I can send you this image real quick. Okay. I'm just going to try and pull an image so they had a discussion that was about 2 hours long, and one of the things I'm going to try to handle this very respectfully. I want to be clear that because I know Kelly Richardson has been offended throughout this saga throughout the last year or more. And so even though, I felt like I never disrespected him, and the same with Benaiah Israel, he hasn't feigned offense. He doesn't seem the least bit offended by what I've posted, but I've tried to make clear that I intend no disrespect to him either. So the same thing for the rest of these gentlemen. But I'm going to send you an image now. If it's okay, I'll send it to you through Facebook.
Yeah, you can
Messenger?
send it to me. Yeah, and I'll send it to
Okay.
brother Brian, because he knows how to
Oh, I
share
can
it.
send it to him as well because I'm connected to him on Facebook Messenger as well. We've been
Okay,
having
yeah,
some
yes.
some
Send it to him
exchanges.
as well. Yeah, send it to
Let's see,
him as
Brian
well.
Garcia. Okay, here we go. I'll send it to him. All right, I've sent it to both of you.
Okay.
So they had a 2-hour discussion, and I was anxiously looking forward to this because the gentlemen now believe that there has been a paradigm shift in this argument. They believe that now there is evidence that there's Hebrew on the pews, the case is closed, and they're even declaring that a Hebrew scholar has agreed with them. Unfortunately, in their 2-hour show today, they never settled on a particular string of characters. They never said, well, this is what we think it is. And that's what I was most interested in. Towards the end of their 2-hour show, they showed an email, which I just sent to Brian. I sent a screenshot, and they showed a single email. Apparently, they were corresponding with a scholar, and they said that the scholar has confirmed what they're saying. Now, I watched their show while I was out with family after church, so I may have missed some things. But the way I understood it is they were saying, and I'm going to try to rewatch their show and get a better sense of what they said, but they were saying that this scholar agrees with their position, but unfortunately, they only showed one email from this scholar, and it seems, in my opinion, quite inconclusive and vague. I don't know if you gentlemen have the. Sorry, if the two of. Yes, there it is. Right.
Yes.
Can we zoom in on that?
Okay, brother Brian, is it possible? Can you zoom in on it? Okay, he's gonna try to
No worries. No worries. Yeah.
focus on it. So okay, so they supposedly got it because I didn't watch all of it. I seen
for
like
the record, apparently Kelly Richardson is going to do another show tonight. If I'm understanding correct, within the next hour or two, apparently he's going to do a show.
Okay.
So maybe there'll be more. I don't know. But and maybe then they'll finally settle in on a specific string of characters. And I think this is important for two reasons. Number one, in order for us to agree that there's a discernible language in there, whether it's Arabic or Hebrew or anything, we have to be able to say what it says. It can't just be based on the resemblance of the markings to certain characters, because that could happen with a lot of things. That was the point of my very first video on the subject.
It's real quickly. This is from David M. Bonis, and it says, "Thanks for this new look at the characters. Looking at it, it says it seems to me that you could also see your Israel. That is Israel. Best wishes, David." That's it.
That's it. That was the only email they showed. Maybe there's more in the emails exchanges they had with him, but I was. While they're declaring that this is done, it's finished, the scholars are on their side, for me, that was somewhat inconclusive, if that's all there is. I'm hoping if they have more in the emails that they'll show more later, but thus far, it seems to me that he's just sort of saying, well, you could look at it this way, maybe. The second question is, what exactly were they looking at? And that's unclear, but I could send another image. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, and Brother Brian, he'll screen share it. Oh,
yeah, let me see if I can.
That was like kind of, I mean, kind of,
So it's not even clear. Like, you'll notice he says, well, this latest thing that you showed me, that it could mean X, Y, and Z, right? Right. That's basically what he's saying. It could mean Israel. But the question is, what could mean Israel? And so that's unclear. I'm going to send one more picture to Brian, because they showed a black and white photo, which turned the relevant pew 90 degrees to the right. Hold on, let me send this to Brian. Forgive me.
No problem.
Brian.
Take your time. Take your time. Yeah.
Here we go. All right, I sent it to Brian now, and when he has a moment, he can pull it up. Ooh.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what I'm guessing. They didn't say explicitly. Hold on, forgive me. I just want to wait for it to come up on the screen.
No problem.
So before they showed that email, right, they had showed an image of the pew. It was a black and white photo, and it was the pew turned 90 degrees to the right. In my own video on the subject, exploring some of Benaya's work, I turned the pew 90 degrees to the left, because he was starting it in a way that's the way you would read it. They seem to turn the pew the exact opposite way, so to turn it upside down. And the reason this is significant is because when you see this, it seems like he's taking a very different reading from what they were proposing. I see it's coming up on the screen now. Let's see. It's not up yet from my viewing.
Yeah, it's a couple of seconds delay. It'll be right up.
No problem. I'm not in a rush. Let's see. Okay. Yes, that. Okay, so that is the same pew that Benaiah had looked at, but it's the pew turned 90 degrees to its right. And if this is the image that they showed the relevant scholar, David Bunis, who's apparently a professor at the University of Washington, if this is what they showed him, and this is what he's referring to, it's interesting to me because you may recall from my video, which you showed on your show, was it a day or two ago? Yes. They had argued that the opening characters were two chets. It's the 8th character of the Hebrew alphabet, right?
Right.
So that's what, if you see on the right of that image, it looks like 2 U's, right? That's what they were saying was chet, and if you turn it upside down, it does resemble the cursive Hebrew chet, or more specifically the solitreo chet, right? And the thing is, if this is the image, I don't know if it is, but if this is the image that the scholar was looking at, then he seems to be interpreting one or both of the chets as a shin, or sin more specifically, as a completely different letter from the way they interpreted it. And for me, that's another reason to think that this is somewhat inconclusive, because they were saying like definitively these are 2 chets. And now I'm wondering what this scholar saw that he thought he might see Israel within these markings, if these were the markings that they showed him. But unfortunately, it's uncertain. But the other thing I wanted to say is Kelly Richardson. He was an opponent of a transition that the church made. So the church, First African Baptist Church, if I'm not mistaken, they had a tour guide who had a video who said that there was cursive Hebrew on the pews. And for whatever the case, the church itself had people who said that there were Hebrew on the pews. And then at some point recently, in the last few years, they changed their position. And now on their official website, they say it's Arabic.
Arabic script. Yep. West
African Arabic. And so Kelly Richardson was an opponent of that, and he was a critic of that. And he insinuated that there was some sort of political pressure that made them change that. It wasn't based on any sort of, according to him, it wasn't based on any sort of like objective look at the markings. Rather, that was like external pressure that got them to change it. Right. Now, interestingly enough, he took a specific position on that. He repeatedly said to people who are advocates of the view that Arabic appears in the pews, he repeatedly said, if you're going to say it's Arabic, then read it to me. If you're going to say it's Arabic, then read it to me. Tell me what it says. And I've always maintained that is a fair request on the part of Kelly Richardson. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because, if we're going to say, this is the same thing I've been saying for the last year, if we're going to say there's Hebrew on those pews, then the same rule should apply. As Kelly Richardson said, read it to me. Tell me what it says. Show me what you think it says. So they believe that now we've reached a point where it's been definitively proven and the matter is closed. But so far, they haven't settled on a specific reading of the text. So we can still ask, well, like Kelly Richardson asked the proponents of Arabic, can you tell us what it says? Now, again, Kelly Richardson has a show apparently tonight, maybe an hour from now or 2 hours from now. So we'll see when we have time to watch that show if he settles on a specific reading. That's the big thing for me, that if people are going to discuss this, I want to see what reading the proponents of a particular view settle on. And today's show, which was 2 hours long, they never settled on a specific reading, but I'm hoping that Kelly Richardson does, that he settles on a specific reading. And so I would ask anyone who's interested, who watches this saga, anytime you see someone present a video on this subject, see if they ever present a specific case for a specific reading of the text. So far, we've seen from Benaiah, and I want to say again that I really appreciate the work that Benaiah has done. He has ushered in a paradigm shift in this conversation. His work has got, because Kelly Richardson was saying this matter is done, it's finished, he doesn't want to discuss it anymore. He was saying that just, I don't know, a month ago or something like that. And now with Benaiah Israel, Benaiah has single-handedly, well, maybe not single-handedly because he says people are working with him, but he and his team have re-energized the debate and brought a number of people back in to discuss it. And so that's why I really appreciate it. But I want to see what they settle on. And so thus far, the Benaiah has presented two different ideas. My video was on the first one. I have a Facebook post on the second post he did. And I don't know where Kelly Richardson is going to settle on this, but I think that's the most important thing to look for. What exactly does he believe it says? Will he settle on a particular reading that Benaiah proposed already, or will he introduce a new reading, or will he present no reading at all? And I think these are important questions. But so I know I've been sort of rambling here a bit. If you have some questions, feel free to ask. I'll hand it back to you.
Well, I will say this, because the evidence and that you have presented out there, and even what Faithful to God has presented out there, has been consistent. This is me personally, and from the past videos that I have watched, the statements that Kelly Richardson has made, and the other people that are working with him, it's been a lot of back and forth, inconsistence. Once they said, what did they the God has base, that was the last recent one from
Yes.
Israel. Now we gotten it saying that it's Israel. So we're getting two different stories from that particular side. However, I'm looking at the side of the Christendom, if you want to say it like that. It has been consistent. And here's another thing, brother. I don't believe that that's Hebraic script at all. We all did it together. What was that? A couple of days ago, class. We looked at actual Hebraic script. We went to your video. We looked at the pews, and then we looked at even a sample of Arabic. Now I can see a little bit of an argument for Arabic, and the Hebraic script. I'm sorry, regardless of what has been said, it's off the table. Not because I dislike them or anything, but because of the evidence that has been presented. That's number one. Number two, Abu, the focus has been just on the pews.
Yeah, that's been what I've been trying to do. And I've repeatedly told people, let's just focus on the pews. They wanted to focus on lineage, and then things got very contentious and emotional because a lot of these gentlemen, and I'm not referring to the gentleman who spoke today, but a lot of their supporters and fans, the genealogical and lineage questions can become very deeply emotional for them. And I really wanted to separate that out, as I don't see lineage and language as related to each other. But a lot of people tried to bring lineage into it when I didn't want to. And then they sort of tricked themselves into believing that I was attacking their lineage when I wasn't. I always wanted to focus just on the markings,
Yeah, that's a smoke screen. I'm just gonna call it what it is, and I'm not being disrespectful. That's a smoke screen. When you present facts, and an opposite argument of theirs, they deem it as disrespectful, because again, from the pattern that we have seen on this side, it is take what we say at face value, regardless of what's been said. Take what we say at face value, and if you decide to fact check things, then it becomes disrespectful. That is unjust in itself. Now, here's the thing. This church is historical, correct? I think all three of us can agree on this. Now, here's the thing. The whole church is telling a story of the past. And not on your part, but on Kelly Richardson's part, when he went to the church itself, we can tell that yes, he just focused on the pews and then the stained glass windows, which you did a video on that, bro. And I mean, that was a good heck of a video that you did.
Yes, because there was somewhat misleading what they said about the images. Yeah,
exactly, saying that it was going right to left when it's actually going down, up, down, column right, column form, correct? Okay, yes, so that's already that's another strike against it. Now, here's the thing. We've been
May
doing
I
our
comment? Actually, there's another
yes, yes.
interesting
Oh, yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
another interesting thing that stood out for me is Kelly Richardson. So the columns of those images move right to left. The images of the pastors move downward, and then the columns move right to left. And so his argument was, we have these markings on the pews, right? And tacitly, he was saying he doesn't have to look at them, but they weren't taking a look at the pews, but he was saying, well, let me rephrase that. I'm not going to say he was saying that we don't have to look at them, but he wasn't looking at the pews themselves. But he was saying, look, even the stained glass windows move right to left. Therefore, the sort of tacit implication is that's how you know there's Hebrew on the pews, because if even the stained glass windows are moving in the direction that the Hebrew language moves in, then you can be more confident that this is Hebrew. One of the great ironies is that when Benaiah Israel presented his case for his first case and his second case, if I'm not mistaken, yes, his first and his second case. I don't know if they're going to change this and adopt a third case, but so far it's Benaiah Israel's work that really excited Pastor Kelly Richardson and others. His first two presentations moved from left to right, in contrast to how Hebrew typically moves. Now, that's fine, but I wanted to mention that because I felt there was some irony there, that if the stained glass windows allegedly moving right to left was supposed to be indicative of how the Hebrew language moves, and this was supposed to be a big deal that we need to focus on, yet we were then being told that it's possible that the language on the pews themselves, what's supposed to be the actual Hebrew, might not move right to left. I felt that there was a certain irony there that, we had to really sink our teeth into it, really meditate on. They want us to really think about the fact of the windows allegedly moving right to left, because that's indicative of Hebrew. But then shortly thereafter, they seem to come close to adopting a position which seems to say, but the markings themselves might not move right to left. It was, I found that perplexing. Maybe ironic is not the right word, but that's perplexing. It's curious. But I'm sorry, continue as you were saying.
Yeah, and for that very reason of what you just spoke about, and and here's the thing, I'm not sure if you've been made aware of it. I was thinking about contacting you about this, but I said no, I wanted to leave it for this moment. Again, the whole church is historic, and it tells a past history, a deep rooted past history. So meaning that you have to take the whole thing into the whole church into consideration, which I don't believe that Kelly Richardson and the rest of his staff has done, which I find very unfair, which being a descendant of African slaves. Here's my thing. And what actually opened my eyes to this, besides, and it made even what you said in your various videos, it brought more clarity and it makes more sense. Let me explain what show you what I'm talking about. So our beloved brother Kevin G, the other I want to say, what was it, 4 nights ago, class, brother Brian, was that
it was about 4 nights ago.
About 4 nights ago, came up here, and I mean, he just laid a heavy foundation. I might play the clip of it so you can hear it
I would
for
love
yourself.
To see it, yeah, or hear it at least, yeah.
And yeah, he bought. In fact, I will go and grab the video first. So I'm going to go to my channel. As you can see right here, it's a couple of seconds delay, so just give it some time.
No problem.
It'll come up. And he brought a lot of clarity to this situation, and he really inspired me. And I had to go down on my knees for forgiveness, because I was just so focused on the pews. But it's no fault of your own, brother Abu, or mine, because the Hebrew Israelites have it's a pattern of theirs. They get you so focused on one thing, and you forget about everything else, and everything else is a connection. These how can I say this? You notice how in the Bible we stress context, right? Context is key. Our motto up here is context kills false doctrine. take everything into consideration around that verse. Well, it's the same thing with archaeology, or if you're dealing with something historical, deal with the full context. And so when Kevin G came up here, he added more context to this situation, and I can't wait for you to hear it.
Okay.
And even though Kevin G is not here right now, I want to give thanks to that dear brother. Thank you, Kevin G, for the effort that you put in and bringing more clarity and context to this. So we're talking about a deep-rooted past here, right? So let me go over here, and I believe it's this one that we looked at, and let me put it on mute. Because I want you to hear the whole clip here. Okay. Now, see these holes right here, right?
Yeah, I've heard of the cosmogram. I don't see it yet, but yeah, I've heard of it. It sort of
It's
forms like a diamond. Is that correct?
yes,
Because I don't
sir.
see it yet.
Yes, sir. So you do know about it.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
And so I when he brought this out, and this particular a cosmogram, I guess
I
that's
see it now. I see it now.
It tells a story. Okay. And and I understand what archaeology and historical artifacts or whatever can tell, probably, different sides of a story, or multiple things can be brought into it. But when he brought this out here, it really brought some clarity, and it caused me to look even further. So I'm gonna should I start right here? Yeah, I'll start
I
right
see
here.
you have vocab's interaction with GMS Dallas appeared on the screen briefly.
Yeah, we were on your video. Hey, bro, we've been bringing up your videos quite a bit here. And as you can see, we were looking at the Arabic script. I mean, not Arabic script, the Hebraic script, and then the Hebraic block letters. Okay, so we were all doing this together. And as I scroll through here, we took a look at the sample of Arabic here. It's going to come up in a few seconds. So I'm just
real quick, if I may comment real quick, just because I meant to say this earlier. Two things. First, regarding the script, just to be fair to them, to Benaiah Israel, I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier. Their position now is that it's not merely a Hebrew cursive, and some Hebrew cursive did appear on the screen. I see. I don't know if it's still there with the time delay, but it's not merely a Hebrew cursive, but rather it's specifically solitreo, which was a more specific Sephardic cursive, which has gone out of use. It's a bit different from the sort of cursive that's now popular in Israel today, although I think both of them go back to the Middle Ages. But yeah, Solitreo was a different script, and so at least some of the markings did sort of resemble Solitreo characters. But as I've said for over a year, the markings resemble all sorts of things. They resemble Greek characters, they resemble characters in the standard Hebrew cursive, and so on down the line. And even Arabic script. So I just want to put that out there. And real quick about the cosmogram, I wanted to point out the cosmogram that's on the floor, right? One thing that I find interesting and worth noting is there's definitely a precision there. Like you see how the circles, the holes that are drilled into the ground are lined up very symmetrically. It's lined up beautifully, right? So whoever did that had a great precision with their hands, and also the pews themselves and whatever else the people built, but the pews themselves were apparently built by slaves. There's a beauty and precision to the pews, right? The reason why I bring this up is because the question then becomes, in a vacuum, there's a question of, if these markings are Hebrew, why is it so it seems like random scratchings to a lot of people, right? Like, for example, recently they've proposed that on the pew, one of the letters might be the letter Kof, the Solitreo Kof, but they're proposing that the letter Kof might be this letter that's practically horizontal if it's a Kof. Like, why would it be horizontal? Why is, the characters look, if this was a person actually writing, it looks sort of, and forgive me, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but the writing looks sloppy. And so the argument then becomes, well, you have to understand they were slaves. They may have done it in a rush. They may have been in distress. and so on and so on. And therefore, that's how you get this sort of very, it almost looks like a sloppy hand. Like it's not clearly laid out like the way you would expect Hebrew characters to be. But here's the problem with that. The pews and the cosmogram and maybe other things show that there were people who were able to employ a very real, visible precision, a very careful hand. And so it's strange to say that they were able to do this, the cosmogram, the shape of the pews and stuff like that, the carpentry, all of that was able to be done by a very steady hand, a very trained hand. But somehow when they were allegedly writing Hebrew, all of a sudden they're in distress and they're in a rush and, they can't put something that's clear. And I find that very curious. But anyway, I'm sorry, continue.
No, you're absolutely, you took the words right out of my mouth. And my thing is, when you look at the holes in the ground, in the floor, not in the ground, but in the floor, it's precise. And whoever did it knew what they were doing, number one. Number two, it's perfect. It's like, it's not even it's not a rush job. And so I'm just looking at that they took the time to drill those holes, or well, I can't say drills because drills wasn't, the stuff that we have now wasn't.
Well, it would be even more impressive. Then it's even more impressive. Yeah, that's a good point. They didn't have electric drills. So however they quote unquote drilled those holes, it's even more impressive because, imagine trying to dig holes with that precision without, a professional electric tool, which obviously they didn't have.
Correct. And why that particular design? And the fact of it is, Brother Abu, we're talking about a church, not a synagogue, not a mosque, but a church. Now, these people were clinging and holding on to the Hebraic situation as Kelly Richardson and them have presented. Wouldn't it show resemblance of a synagogue? I don't see that. Okay. And so that's another thing that that raises question in my mind. Now, let me ask you this. Did Kelly Richardson mention those holes in the floor?
Not to my knowledge. No, I don't know if he considers them relevant, but no, not to my knowledge.
Okay, so
I'm not going to say he hasn't done it, but I personally have not seen him do so.
I watched the video myself. He didn't. He did, and I found that very odd that he did not mention the holes in the floor. Why? Because when somebody just like us will go and actually, I wonder what these holes mean. I wonder what this is about. Why were those holes placed there? And so I found that this is me. This is me. This is not Abu. This is not Brother Brian, but this is me. I find that kind of odd that he did not mention the holes in the floor. Okay, that's information being left out. We're talking about a historical church, so include all of the information where people can at least come to a concise result. He didn't mention that. Okay, so I find that very odd that he didn't do that. Now, let me go over here and let you listen. And it seems like you're familiar with the some of the history of the holes.
A little bit.
A little bit.
But go ahead.
So let me go over here, and you could tell we were on your video. Okay, let me go back to where Kevin G comes in. Okay, all right up in here. Take a listen, bro. Here we go. Leave this. Hold this. US finish. Okay, finish. Y'all give me a second. Finish this repair. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think this might be it. I think it might be. Okay, let's see. Let me just take my chances. Okay, well, this is not the one he gave me, but it is saying the same information, from what I can see. AP, yeah, okay, Associated Press. Okay, I think this is the same one. I think this is the same one. It just looks a little different on my phone. I think this might be the same one. Let me just check. Savannah. Yep, it is. It's the same one. Okay. It's the same one. Okay, so let me make this bigger for you all so you can see it because I don't want to hurt nobody's eyes. Okay, so I think 150 might be okay. Now, this came out in 2019, December 9th, 2019. So this was every bit of last year. Let me come back here into my chat so I can see what y'all in here doing. Gotta keep my eye on y'all. Okay, gotta watch the babies. And this is the article that Kevin G just shared in the chat. So if you want to grab it, you can. So you can follow suit, or you can look up here on the screen. It says here the Black church believes, what was it called? Believes finishing repairs or something like that. It says Savannah, Georgia, AP, a 160-year-old church believed to be the oldest Black church in the United States and built by enslaved Africans, has been restored to a version of its former glory. A fresh coat of paint covers the freshly carpeted First African Baptist Church in Savannah, Georgia, which also had its bells and towers fixed, water damage, ceiling repair, and stucco replaced, and Savannah Morning News reported Saturday. It's costly nearly $600,000 to repair the numerous issues, the Reverend Thurmond Tillman said. The church, a National Historic Landmark, was organized in 1773. Established before slavery was ended. Okay. According to the website, which says the church gained a pastor in 1775 and a congregation 2 years later. The sanctuary was completed in 1859. Some historic pieces were left untouched during the restoration, such as the pews. The church says are carved with what? West African Arabic script. Now, I told you, when I first seen those pews, and if I had a choice, and again, I'm still not declaring dialect, I will lean more so to what? Arabic. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see what else it says here. West African script. One of the earliest forms of writing. The original sanctuary still is dotted with holes that were arranged in the shape of an African prayer symbol of life. Now, wait a minute. A lot of the Hebrew Israelites say that they're not African. But the people that founded and built this church embraced their Africanism. Again, I'm not putting nationality on the front line, but because of the argument. Why are these people embracing their Africanism? This is crazy to me. Shouldn't they be embracing saying Hebrew Jews and stuff like that? Shouldn't we see that? But we don't see this. And we got African prayer symbolism of life. And I'm going to look that up to see what that looks like, by the way. But let me continue. African prayer symbolism of life. Okay, here come Kevin G. Welcome to the platform, Kevin G. This is a blasting article that you just gave me.
Yeah. So, how you doing? Everything, everything cool with me. Hope everything's
Yes.
well with you.
Oh, I'm doing fine, sir. I'm doing
Okay.
fine.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. It's been a long little bit, but I'm here to. I had to jump in here, and the reason why is because I want to show you something very significant that I don't want you to just gloss over. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, here's how we know for sure that those whole that practice there
Mm-hmm.
is West African and Arabic. Here's how we know
Okay.
for sure.
Yes, sir.
If you look at the pew, like I look at all the pictures of the pews already. Okay.
Yes, sir.
None of them, none of them are in Hebrew. You already went through that. And some of them is just straight carvings, like straight lines. Now, what you will also find is you just mentioned those holes that were drilled in the ground. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's very significant, extremely significant. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Those holes are designed. They're actually drilled in a triangle. Okay. There's a
Okay.
picture you can pull up online. If you just do African, first African church, and then put holes.
Yes, sir. Hold
And
on.
if you, yep.
Hold on. I'm trying to follow you. So I'm gonna close some of these tabs. I'm gonna keep that open, but I'm gonna close actually I'm gonna just close that tab, and then I'm gonna open up a new tab. And okay, tell me what to type.
You could just put First African Baptist Church, and they put holes, Holes.
Okay, First African Church, and then just put holes.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Do you want me to go to images, or do you want me to just click on that here?
You can go to images,
Should
and
I
I
go to
just want
image
to, yeah, just go to
images?
images, and what you're gonna see is a picture of a young. It's a young man. Well, I'm sure he's older than me at this point. There it is. See it? All right. So you see that? You see the
Okay,
holes there?
right here.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So those holes there, you got to understand what those are. Okay. And here's how I'm gonna show you that this is beyond a shadow of a doubt, not Hebrew in those pews. They never brought up these
Yes,
holes,
sir.
and I'm gonna tell you why. If you look up West African religion, okay,
Okay.
they incorporated Islam in what they call Cosmo religion. And what the Cosmo religion was, that African prayer symbol that you see right there, they make a triangle going in each direction, north, east, south, and west, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
what they call that is the cycle of life. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the cycle of life, that means that they pray according to those symbols going counterclockwise around. So for each hole, just like beads that you'll find in like the rosemary beads or something,
Yes.
they will go counterclockwise, counting about who they are in the world, and then the spiritual world, the physical world, and the spiritual world. So if you were to cut a horizontal line in the middle of that, what you have on top, those dots on top will represent your physical world, and then the bottom of that triangle or that square will be the spiritual world. And this practice actually came from Nile Valley or African practices with Egypt, because of the underwat, the whole thing of the sun rising from the horizon and going down. And when the sun goes below, the underworld or your spiritual self is dealt with. Why, when the sun comes up, then you deal with your physical self. And what this is called either Congo or Congolese cosmogram. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Congo or Congolese cosmogram. And this Congolese congogram, the symbol of life and death, I think some places called Samsamara, that they actually look at, and it's called the cycle of death and rebirth. Now, get this. this was practiced in West Africa. And guess what it was associated with?
Well, what?
Islam.
What?
Yes. Yep.
Oh my God. What?
Yes. Yes. The Congolese cosmogram is the peak of understanding spiritual and physical life cycles. Now, if you look at the actual study of the Congo, I forget the source that I read it from a while ago, but this was associated not with Christianity. This was associated with Islam. They associated this with Islam. Those religions that they practiced there in the Hausa, the Sufi, the Mali Empire, they incorporated a lot of their cosmology with African beliefs and with Islamic practices that they had then. So they looked at it as a co-witness to how they understood the Quran, the practices of Muhammad, the teachings of Muhammad. And they did this, but they had it in their own way. That's why they had their own version of Arabic that was different in its translations in its dialect. They had a different version of how they prayed, and they prayed using this. So they had a pew. They built these pews, but keep in mind, these pews wasn't for them. This wasn't their religion. They built that in 1773. This was during the time when I believe it was 3 years before the Revolutionary War, which was in the time of 1775, 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was even signed.
Yes, sir.
So that church wasn't called an African church until they, just like you read out of that article, was in 1856. Around that time. So what they did before then is when they built that place, you could see clearly that is a cursive Arabic or Arabic type writing that's on the side of that. The church even agrees and says this. They said this is a West African Arabic script that we see on the side of these pews. And it proves it that this was not a Hebraic people, because why in the world were they carving Congolese cosmograms in the ground, in the floor? That is not a practice that has anything to do with the Bible, period. That is purely West African tradition and religion.
Yes, sir.
So if next time they prove and say, oh, this is Hebrew here, first of all, it doesn't match with any Hebrew or cursive.
Yes.
It doesn't match with any script that we see out there. In fact, it looks closely to the Ajami, which is the West African version of Arabic. You see evidence after evidence after evidence of all the kingdoms in West Africa are all Arabic ones. The richest ones, Timbuktu, the Mali Empire, the Hausa, here, let me look at my book here. I got a book here by Time Life called African Kingdoms, and I read this book a lot with my son.
Bring it out.
So basically, if you look at the timeline of all the kingdoms that existed in West Africa, a lot of their influence actually come from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. If you look at the kingdom of Mali, if you look at the kingdom of Kilwa, Kilwa, Mali, Bornu, all it is they were all Arabic. They were all Arabic speaking, all Arabic religions. So much so that they forget one key thing. If you look at the movie Roots, in the beginning, Kunta actually was saying that they practiced Islam where he came from.
Yes.
You remember that scene?
Yes.
They did heavy research for that movie. And the fictional character, I think it was Kunta, when they portrayed him as he practiced Islam. He practiced Islam.
Kevin G.
You have more evidence and more accounts of West African slave traders dealing with the religion of Islam and getting that out of them. Oh, and not only did they have Islam, But they also incorporated that with voodoo, which we also see practiced down in Louisiana and down in the South of Mississippi as well.
Right. Oh, you make so much sense.
Nobody had no rendition, no version of Hebrew at all. No one had circumcision on the 8th day. No one had any of those things. Those things were found much later after influence of actual Jews that actually went there. But when I brought up these pews and people were arguing about it, I don't really say too much about it. I kind of look my own, because I like to do research on my own to find out whether something is true or not. And when I saw that,
that's fine.
I saw that and I saw those holes in the ground, I said, what is that? I said, what is that? And I did as much research as I can with it. And I said, but what are they associated with? And sure enough, the religion that they associated with was Islam. And then actually, the truth be told, then they associated with Christianity much later. They associated it with Christianity much later. And guess what? It was by another slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. So they got Islam when the Arabic slave trade happened. They incorporated African spirituality with it and did a lot of practices with it. And guess what? They incorporated it with Christianity after what? The Europeans came through.
So I'm not crazy.
No, the West Africa has always incorporated their native religious practices, whatever ruling religion that's going on now. For instance, if you look at Africa today, it is a mixture of just that. African traditionalism, Islam, and Christianity.
Oh,
you find no.
So, Abu, this right here, this is me actually talking. This right here caused me to go even further. So I end up looking deeper into what Kevin G said, and what he said, it did check out. Now, I even went further when I seen another video. I don't want to bombard you with a lot of video, but I have to present this evidence to you. You, Faithful, Vocab, all of us, we're on the right track. The fact that he did not mention these holes in the floor, that right there, this is a very big piece of evidence that should not be left out. And my mind can't stop saying, why did you leave this out? Why didn't you mention this? And it's not like he did not know about it, because guess what? The church itself holds tourism, where people come and tour the actual historic church. And these holes,
he's been part of those tours.
Thank you. Why not mention this? And again, I'm not trying to get in the way of the pew situation, but what I'm doing over here, all of us, what we're doing, we're taking everything into account. And here's another factor: the ceiling. The ceiling of the church, before it went through renditions, the ceiling of the church actually has patterns, diamond patterns on the ceiling, mimicking also what they have also mentioned in is quilts. Now, some scholars who do African history says, oh, that's just a folklore. But actually, Brother Abu, it's not. Because I was even told this by my own very grandmother, who has a quilt. And she's gone on to glory. My grandmother's gone on to glory, but she has quilts. And she has a quilt from my great-great-grandmother, Grandmother Mary Carter, who was herself a descendant of slaves, or probably was a slave herself. So it's not far-fetched. The ceiling of it, of the church itself, had patterns in quilt patterns at the actual, on top of the actual ceiling. I have the video where the church, I guess the historian of the church, or the tourist, the person who handles the tourism of the church, mentions the ceiling. And why wasn't that mentioned as well? And it has the same diamond pattern that we're looking at right now. And I even went in to examine this particular diamond here, these holes. And I found information about this. Yes, it was a West African tradition called cosmogram or cosmology, however you want to say it. So for them, for the rest of the church to say African spiritualism, if you want to form, if for the lack of a better word, and all of a sudden the pews are just Hebraic, that makes no sense, bro.
Yeah, it's well, I'm not sure what to say, but it's certainly interesting. I'll say that much. Yes, it is interesting. And well, another thing is within that, what you said is, we have all this African symbology, and then suddenly the pews allegedly have Hebrew. What I would say is it is interesting to ask, if there are any other signs of alleged Hebrew. Now, apparently they're still developing their argument, so maybe they'll present more. But yeah, that is a question. Like, is the only alleged Hebrew in the church these markings, which are, to put it mildly, rather imprecise? As we said earlier, there's all this precision all over the church, and then the alleged Hebrew is very imprecise, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is the question. Like, is there anything else aside from these very imprecise markings?
Yes, because everything else, I mean, look at this. Look at your screen with the holes
Mm-hmm.
right here. It's direct. I mean, you can make it out clearly. You can actually go and look it up. It's pointing towards West African spiritualism. The ceiling does the same thing. They still have I guess some ruins or the actual tunnel of the church, which this church is connected to the Underground Railroad. In fact, it was one of the safe houses during the Underground Railroad time. That still exists. All of these things, and not to mention these holes serve the purpose for the slaves to breathe where underground where they were. So how could he leave this out? I'm sorry, brother, but that's kind of deceptive to me. Now I'm saying that's Cherry Love speaking, not Abu. That's Cherry Love saying that. This is my position. I'm taking all of this into account, that the floor is saying African spiritualism. The ceiling is saying African spiritualism. The Underground Railroad itself, African, dealing with the Africans that were bridged in. And then on top of that, brother, I have to add in here, not attacking the nationality at all, but the event, the Arab slave trade. They will not deal with it. They will, bro. Myself, brother Brian, Pastor Sean, and various other people here in the chat that are listening to us right now have approached them about, why haven't you dealt with the Arab slave trade? They just brush it off as if it never happened.
Interesting.
Yeah. And bro, like I said, I'm not being disrespectful.
Understood.
I'm not being outright here, even though I really want to. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm going to tell you this as and I'm not pulling nationality into this, but I am an African American woman that has descended from slaves. And looking at this whole situation, the fact that they only paid attention to the pews to make it out Hebrew, which I don't believe that is Hebrew, and ignore all of the rest of the history of the church, I will be bold. I spent maybe an hour or two on the phone with Brother Brian, who is on the panel right now in tears. Because you can embrace this, but you want to demonize that. And this is where you come from. These are the people that you claim that you care about, but then you leave out the rest of the history of what they went through, or where they've been at, or how they got where they got. The church itself is telling the whole story, and they just embrace the pews to make it out Hebrew and just wipe the rest of the rest of it clean away, like it doesn't even matter. That is disrespect in itself. And I'm holding back. I'm holding back tears because I know, I don't want to get too emotional for you, but this is an emotional thing attached to it. And I think it was very disrespectful. That has been wiped away clean, completely ignored. That's wrong. That's wrong. And I just, the whole church itself tells the entire story of what events happened in that particular place. And Kelly Richardson walked up in there. I'm going to say it. When you brought out the stained glass windows, he says that I guess one of the pastors is his great uncle or something like that.
James Wesley Carr, yes.
Right. And when you show, and this is Cherry Love talking, not Abu. I'm expressing my position to Brother Abu from what I see. When that was brought out, that it wasn't right to left, but it was going up and down in column. Immediately, my mind said, you lying on your own family. You're lying on your own family, sir. And not to mention, you're wiping the rest of the historical facts of that church away, as dismissing it as if it has no merit. That is disrespect. The Jews, they didn't do this thing that you see right here on the screen. They didn't. This wasn't their custom. Why would you leave that out? When the Jews talk about their history, Brother Abu, they talk about it all. I'm sorry, but what Kelly Richardson has done, that's not Hebraic at all. And it's not Africanism either. Because even Africans have oral traditions, and they have things that they pass down from generation to generation that tells a long history of their beginning or throughout their history, their life, or what they went through, and so on. And they don't just give partial, they tell the whole story. So I'm going to say this. I find it disgusting and hurtful. I find it disingenuous and unfair. And I don't find it to be Hebraic to tell partial of the story. And I don't find it African to tell partial of the story. So I wouldn't even give him credit for the Africanism at this point, Brother Abu. I'm sorry, I can't do that. And I think it was very wrong to leave this crucial information out from the rest of the. They still haven't even talked about it. From what I'm hearing, they still haven't talked about it. When I looked at the video, he didn't even mention it. And as an African woman who, yes, again, descended from slaves, I find it very disrespectful and disingenuous. Yes, sir. Those are my feelings. That was absolutely wrong. Here it is. You know about it, Abu. Here it is, Abu. You mentioned it. He hasn't mentioned it once. And the way I look at it is just, I don't have no words no more. I don't. I don't, sir. I don't. And I took the time to look deeper into this. And when the woman mentioned about the quilts, immediately I thought about my grandmother and my great grandmother and my great great grandmother. When she mentioned those quilts, about the ceiling, that the ceiling has a quilt pattern. And the slave, when they seen that quilt pattern, they knew that this was a safe house. It was safe for them to be there. But it's not worthy enough to be mentioned. So you can go ahead. Just give me a second. I'm gonna.
Well, I mean, I think we've covered, we've covered a lot of the basics, and I think where we have to go now is to see, because honestly, the ball remains in their court. We have to see where they go from here. What they'll respond to, what they'll bring out, and the conversation will continue. One thing I'll say is that the first year of this discussion, from basically October of 2019 to October of this year, it was. It felt like a non-starter, like the conversation never got off the ground. And now finally they're starting to propose different strings of characters, in a sense perhaps very different strings of characters, but nonetheless, at least now they're starting to look in the markings. And as I said, Kelly Richardson has a show tonight, and I think that's going to be the big question for me. That's always what I'm going to be looking for. Will he settle on a specific string of characters, or will the discussion sort of not focus on that? So that's what I want to see. I want to see where they go from here, and the discussion will continue. And I think that pretty much sums it up. And maybe we can pick this up again after they've made some claims. I intend to make another video on the subject after I've had a chance to watch Kelly Richardson's show tonight. I may not see it tonight, but I have to wait till tomorrow or whatever. But once I've seen his show that's supposed to air tonight, and once I've rewatched the live discussion between Benaiah Israel, Pastor Kelly Richardson, and others, then I'm going to sit down and make a video which will offer my response, because so far we're at a point now where some of the proponents of this view believes that this has been, it's a total knockdown argument, the case is closed, while for me it seems quite inconclusive. But we'll see where they go, and then once I see what Pastor Kelly Richardson presents, then I'll be able to share my thoughts in greater detail. So more to come. Yeah. And on that note, I got to run soon, so I hope we can.
No problem,
begin winding
brother.
down. Thank you very much for having me on, though. I really appreciate this, and maybe after.
A quick question for you, Boo.
Oh yeah, please. If any questions.
You originally thought it was Arabic too, didn't you?
No. What happened was my second video on the subject presents a hypothetical case for Arabic. Okay. So what had happened was, for me, it bothered me that because it wasn't just Pastor Kelly Richardson, there were other people on Vocab's forum and elsewhere on the internet who were taking this view, like this is obviously Hebrew in these pews. And I would say, well, what do you see there? Let's get into the markings and just tell me what it is you think it says. And people would avoid looking at the markings. It would be, let's talk about all the evidence for my heritage, or accusations that I have some sort of nefarious motives and stuff like that. You're an agent and all this kind of stuff, or questions about your lineage, like you're an Ishmaelite or maybe you're an Edomite, and all this discussion that never got into the markings. So I made that video on Arabic to sort of show what a person should do if they want to argue for language in those pews. And as I repeatedly said in the video, it doesn't matter if it's Arabic or Yiddish or Vietnamese or Spanish, whatever language you want to claim appears in those pews, you should try to demonstrate that by actually getting into the markings and transcribing what you think you see there. And so I did that because I wanted to show them what it looked like. So I made a hypothetical case for Arabic. And, I felt that case for Arabic was stronger than anything I had seen from Hebrew. That's why I'm grateful to Benaiah Israel. I don't agree with his conclusions, but I do appreciate the gentleman taking the time to finally do what others before him seemed to refuse to do, which is he's actually trying to get into the pews, look at the markings, and transcribe what he thinks he sees there. And for that is it's infinitely better than what we encountered for the previous year. Yeah, it's a big step up. And therefore, even though I don't agree with Benaiah's conclusions, even though I respectfully disagree with Benaiah's conclusions, I appreciate what he's done, because he has sort of changed the paradigm in that regard. And we'll see where it goes from here. Like I said, let's see if Kelly Richardson settles on a specific string of characters, and that's a very fair request to make, because he himself said to all the proponents of Arabic, if you're going to claim it's Arabic, then read it to me. Tell me what it says. And so by the same token, if you're claiming that now the case is closed, it's been proven it's Hebrew, tell me what it says. Show us the characters,
Let me say,
that's fair.
Ask this question, Abu, even based off on his argument, Benaiah, Have you ever seen anything with a double article like that?
Well, first off, it wasn't even the correct character. It was so it's the hey, right, which is the fifth character of the Hebrew alphabet. That's the definite article.
Mm-hmm.
He was pointing to the wrong character, which was the chet, which is the eighth character of the Hebrew alphabet. They look similar, but it was the wrong character. So, and then, people thought I was they said today in their show that I was throwing the translation site under the bus. I wasn't. I was merely trying to explain how it works. That translation site, if you put in a string of Hebrew characters that is not Hebrew, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to attempt to guess what you might have been reaching for. So what it's going to do is ignore characters. It's going to, do stuff like that. And so therefore, that's why when he would put in stuff that's not Hebrew, he would get these guesses. But in the case of the getting the, part of the problem was I think he hit the wrong key. He meant to hit het and hit hey instead, and so too with the whole bass voice thing. He
Yeah.
also, I believe, he hit the wrong key. He meant to hit shin and he hit samech instead, and he got back a modern Israeli Hebrew word that's borrowed from English. Like that's a concept in English, like the bass guitar and stuff like that. Modern Israeli Hebrew has adopted that from English. So a lot part of that is typos. But to Benaya's credit, that was his first argument. His second argument, I don't know if they're developing a third. His second argument switched back to the, rather than it being haze, that it being chet, and he dropped the idea of it meaning the. Instead, the second argument was that it's kof het kof het, and that it means, according to them, to grasp or to take. And I think again they are mistaken in that regard. Kof het with a single het would be the imperative of a verb from the lamed kof het root, but just kof het het is not a Hebrew term. It's not a Hebrew verb that I'm familiar with, and certainly not a verb for like grasp or take. I think what happened is they put this in, and the translator that they're using reached for the closest thing, which was kof with one het, not two. So, but I'll try to cover this in a video in more detail, and we'll see where this goes.